Hello and welcome to the Cisco Route CBT Nuggets series. My name is Jeremy Chara. I'll be hanging out with you throughout this entire series, which I'm really excited to get into, because while this may be the very first nugget that you listen to of the series, and I hope it is, this is actually the last one that I recorded for this entire series, so I know exactly how cool the series is that you're about to get into. What I wanted to do was take just a few minutes to talk about Cisco certification, because I know a lot of you are at least interested in that and moving forward, and one of my goals is, if you're not wanting to get certified, it's to convince you to get certified. It's awesome to get Cisco certified, talk about some of the benefits of that. And really, my other major goal is to talk about how you can get the most from this series. Unlike every other CBT Nuggets series, I have some very unique recommendations for this one. So come with me. Let's go through the whole Cisco certification process. So before we get into understanding the Cisco certification track and all the details of it, let me first talk about Cisco certification in general. It is the most valuable certification I can say personally that I've gotten in my entire career. And I've been doing the certification trek for about 13 years. 13 years ago, I actually got Microsoft MCSE certified in Windows NT. I know it's been a while. And I also got Novell certified in NetWare 4 and NetWare 5, and that one doesn't do me much good nowadays. But nonetheless, I did it. And when you pass both those certifications, you get a certificate in the mail from Microsoft or Novell, respectively, that says, hey, you are now an MCSE or a CNE. And they all send you, it's like a laminated business card. It looks kind of like something important, but it's not really. A plastic card that says you are an MCSE, you can like flash it if you get pulled over by the police or something. It's not really useful, but it's now up to you. They say, okay, you can now use these acronyms on your business card and your resume. It's now up to you to go find a job. Which is great, and back then I knew nothing different. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool certification. Cisco certification, when I got certified, of course, you get the same, plaque, not a plaque, a certificate and business card and things like that in the mail. But Cisco goes above and beyond, and they actually incent companies to hire you. Meaning, unlike every other vendor that I've dealt with, Cisco actually goes out to companies and says, hey, you know what, here's your price on our equipment, but you know what, if you were to hire X number of certified people or X number levels of certified people, CCNA, CCNP, all those kinds of things, we will give you this much off of the equipment. So much so, it's actually Cisco's partner program to where anybody can come in and be a registered Cisco partner, but as you move up, you hire Cisco certified people, and let me back off and say you can't move up in their partner process without hiring certified people. So what you end up with is companies that are looking for your certification to add to their staff, because if they add you, and of course I'm sure they want you to be a good person as well, not just have the certification, but if they add you, they move up in their partner level with Cisco, and they get significant discounts off of Cisco equipment. Very cool to have companies looking for you now instead of you just looking for them. Matter of fact, this became so significant in years past, and they've put the kibosh on this, so you don't see it too much anymore. But they actually had problems with people who get their CCIE, meaning they go all the way with their Cisco certification, would finish that, and they would hire on at a company, but not really work there. They would actually assign their credentials, their CCIE credentials, to that organization, and make X number of $1,000s a year to say that they work there, but they would just go off and do independent consulting. Well, Cisco has definitely put the kibosh on that, but the point of that is you can see just how valuable these certifications are. So all that being said, go for Cisco certification. You can't go wrong. And let me talk to one more group of people. Okay, so you work at a job. Most of the time it's working for the U.S. government, because they seem to be the worst at this, who say, yeah, you can get certified if you want, but we don't do anything for you other than a pat on the back, a Krispy Kreme donut, and a cup of coffee. Good job. To those people I will say, you still got to do it. I mean, because first off, while the job you're at may not value your certification, and this goes for anybody, not just government, where they don't value certifications all that much, think about the future and the doors and possibilities that could open for the future if you were to get those. So enough said. That's my pitch in a nutshell, why you should get Cisco certified. And I'm sure you've already read through all of the bullets on the screen. That's why Cisco certification is so valuable. They have been revising it over the years to become a very real-world process. And it's funny, when I think back to my initial Cisco certification, it was 10 years ago when I first got Cisco certified. I went through the entire CCNA and CCNP in a month. Now I know you're probably going, wow, you must be really smart. No, actually not at all. I can say after that month and getting all those certifications, I knew probably just about as much of Cisco technology as I did before I did that. Maybe a little more, a little more. I just happened to be a good book studier. I could pull out key facts and be like, oh, they're probably going to ask something on that, highlight. And, I was able to achieve it. If I were to do that nowadays, if I were to walk in with zero experience and try Cisco, there is no way I could pass even the CCNA exam in a month. It's been that much of a change. Maybe a month. I'm like, I don't want to shoot myself down that low, but the point is, it's been that much of a change since the days of old when I originally got into Cisco to now. Everything is new, everything's different. There's simulations. It's very real world. Essentially, they say you should not pass these exams unless you know what you're doing. And now you can see right here, these are 2007, 2008 dates that you see up on the screen. You might say, well, what's going on in the modern time frame? Well, here we are, end of 2010, beginning of 2011. And they have completely revised the CCNP curriculum to now be Cisco Route, Switch, and T-Shoot. And I can tell you, I've taken the Route exam, and if you want a sneak peek at the very last nugget of this series, I talk about my experience with that exam. Wow, what a test! It is an amazing exam that, again, you will walk away from that thinking, okay, if I didn't know what I was doing, I would have not have passed that exam. It's a very real-world, experiential exam. So let me talk about the track itself. What's the best direction to go? What's the best certification to get? I get that question a lot. So at this point, you're at Cisco Route, which, first off, this series is not for mere mortals. Meaning, if you have not gone through the CCNA studies and understand where they're at, either gone through CBT Nuggets CCNA series or have an equivalent experience with CCNA, this series, I'm not going to say you'll be lost, but it'll be very difficult because I'm going to assume that you know a lot of stuff by the time you get here. But that's where everybody begins. Everybody starts off with CCENT and CCNA. Even if you're going in the direction of voice or security, Cisco always wants you to have that foundation CCNA. I guess you could call it the CCNA routing and switching foundation under your belt, so you really have a good grasp of the foundation of all Cisco networks. That's where you always begin. Now, statistically, most people will continue on here. And I would say even more so now that Cisco has revised the CCNP track to be just 3 exams instead of 4. It used to be 4 exams. You had BSCI, BCMSN, now it's all blending together. BCMSN, BSCI, ONT, Optimizing Networks, and ISCW, the Converged WANs, Securing Converged WANs networks. So they have gone away from the 4 exams, and now they have boiled it down to just 3: Route, Switch, and T-Shoot. Now the first question is, why'd they do that? Why did they make it, well, I'll put quotes around it, easier to get your CCNP? Well, the truth is they didn't make it easier, they made it more focused. Over the years, all these different kinds of technology has come out, like voice over IP, security enhancements, video over IP. I mean, the world is changing, it always does. And just through attrition, we've started to see, attrition wasn't the right word, I'll say leakage, if that's a better word. Just by leaking these technologies into the CCNP, you start seeing a lot of the CCNP original focus, which was routing and switching, starting to blend into, oh yeah, there's some quality of service. Oh yeah, there's some voice codecs that you're going to have to know. Oh yeah, there's starting to be all of this extra stuff in the CCNP to where it wasn't really a focus on routing and switching anymore. It ended up being a focus on all kinds of different technologies. So what they did when they revised it, a lot of people might say, well, they made it easier. It's one less exam. Well, yes, it's one less exam. However, the technology now goes much deeper than it ever did before. They've added a lot of depth. I think depth is the best word that I can use to describe it. Depth to all of the topics that used to be, they would touch on and be like, oh yeah, if you want to know more about OSPF, go see these web links and things like that. Or if you want to know more about EIGRP or BGP and all of these different things, go study here. Now they really take you there. When you leave CCNP, they want you to master routing and switching. Likewise, when they announced the changes, I didn't believe it, but after seeing it, I do. They said, we want the CCNP to prepare people for the CCIE. Now, the CCIE, first off, I'll throw a little statistic out there for you. This guy down here, only 2% of people who have ever passed a Cisco certification exam, meaning somebody maybe has gotten a CCNT or something like that, 2% of people ever go on to even attempt the CCIE. So it's a very select group of people that even try to get the CCIE because it's a very difficult exam that you have to go after. And the reason, one of the reasons for that is because people would take the CCNP and then they would look at exactly what they have to know for the CCIE and they would just go, no way, no way. Would I even have a chance to know that much depth? You know, and if you ask somebody, if you've asked this question before to somebody, and you say, so what do you have to know for the CCIE? What's the answer that you hear? Everything. That's always the answer from Cisco, from everybody. They always say, you got to know everything to get the CCIE. Well, that's not true. You don't really need to know everything, and there's a lot of fear around that whole exam, simply because nothing prepared you for it moving up to it. Now it does. The CCNP is now a natural transition into the CCIE routing and switching. So much so that when I was going through and I was recording this series, I thought, you know what, this is hilarious. I wish I would have had me, right? I wish I would have had me 6 years ago when I got my CCIE, because I would have been really helpful to explain a lot of these things. And a lot of the concepts that I remember from the CCIE exam have now bled into the CCNP. And I'm just thinking, wow, it's just amazing. Everything's being enhanced. The curve to get into this industry is amazing. I saying this, I feel bad for people that just are getting started into the Cisco realm, because it was so much easier for me a decade ago when I first got into it to get started than it is now, just because the technology has become so rich and so deep. Now, a couple of the logistics. Each exam has an expiration of 3 years, but don't let that scare you. Yes, they do expire after 3 years, but Cisco makes it very easy to renew your exam. Meaning, let's say you get a CCNA. You have that certification for 3 years. Now, when 3 years is coming up, you can either take that one exam again and get another CCNA for 3 years, or you can move on in your studies. Let's say you pass the CCNA Security, CCNA Voice, or maybe you take one of the CCNP exams and pass. It automatically renews everything below it. So for example, you get a CCNA Voice, that now lasts for 3 years, and this gets a fresh 3 years on it as well. So we're talking about route right here. So let's say you take this route exam and pass it. That means your existing CCNA and your CCNT get a fresh 3 years, and now you have 3 years on this before that route exam expires. So you pass switch. You now have 3 years, and this gets a fresh 3 years. Now, it's not additive. It's not like you can keep taking and be like, oh yeah, I've got a CCNA that lasts for 20 years with all the exams I've taken. Not true. It just gets a fresh 3 years every time. Let me just give you a summary of this. I actually have at this point a CCVP, a CCNP, a CCSP, CCIE routing and switching. I have some other Cisco design certifications not even shown here, some wireless certifications. But I actually, every 2 years, the CCIE you have to retest every 2 years. And don't worry, you don't have to take the lab exam. You just retake the written. But every 2 years, I go in and pass my one exam. It automatically renews my CCIE for another 2 years and every other certification I have for 3 years beyond that. So otherwise, without this policy, I would be taking exams every day just to keep them all current. It also, I want to make sure I emphasize this, it goes sideways as well. So let's say you've got a CCNP, you've passed all 3 exams, and then you get into the CCVP, pass one exam from here, and you automatically renew your CCNP for 3 years. Isn't that awesome? Cisco wanted to make sure you don't spend your time reviewing stuff you already know. They want you to get into new stuff, and that's why that recertification policy is so cool. So the last thing I want to talk with you about before I let you into the series is how you can get the most from this CBT Nuggets series. Cisco Route. First and foremost, repetition. There's scientific facts out there, numerous, that say if you just hear something one time, you've instantly forgot it. It's essentially what it's saying. In today's attention deficit world where everything's pulling for your attention, it's impossible to remember things that you hear one time. So go through it again and again and again. Repeat it. That's one of the beauties of CBT Nuggets is you've got me on TiVo. Just rewind me and listen to me a second time. Second thing, take notes. Write down key information that you hear. Say things out loud. One of the things I've been doing lately is CBT Nuggets actually has an iPhone application, which I have found to be an amazing product to have sitting in in my car, I've been getting into a lot of the Windows 2008 server and beyond, R2 and whatnot. Listening to one of the trainers here, James Conrad. What an amazing guy at CPT Nuggets. Learning more about Windows 2008, some of the cool new features that it has. And who's the other guy? Greg Shields. Learning some development stuff. I'm trying. I went to college for computer science and a lot of development and hated it. I'm trying to get back into the development world and get back to my roots as a, dare I say, a programmer. Although Cisco people just have a natural dislike for programmers. I don't know what that is, so I'm going to have to dislike myself when it's said and done. Nonetheless, I'm saying all this to say that I've been sitting in my car, and a lot of times what happens is, James Conrad or Greg will say something, and I'll actually pause it on my phone, and I'll say it out loud. I'll say, Windows 2008 R2 install, I can't even think of something intelligent to say right there. I'll actually say it out loud to myself in the car and then keep driving, because hearing myself say something solidifies it in my head. Sometimes I'll be funny when I say it, make it, just something to stick in my own head. Some people learn by writing down, some people just repeating it again and again. Whatever mode that you learn in, that's what you have to do for yourself as you're going throughout the series so that you retain it. The biggest thing where I want to camp for a few moments is that third bullet. Build a lab. Walking away from the Cisco route exam, I can tell you it will be very challenging to pass that exam without having done this stuff yourself. And Cisco has designed it that way, to where you really need to know what you're doing to pass that test. So 2 ways that you can do that. 1, grab a few routers yourself and build it in your home or at your office. Where to get the routers? You can grab them off of eBay. You can, a lot of times your company will let you borrow some of the old routers that they're not using. I've even heard of companies giving their employees routers. That would be cool. And they just bring them home and set them up and experiment and connect cables and try things out and do all kinds of things to work with the Cisco devices in all kinds of different topologies. If you're going that direction, just like you can see this little mini rack here, I pulled that picture off of some guy's lab on the internet. What a cool little setup. If you're doing that, 3 2600 routers minimum to do some of the topologies that we've been talking about, hopefully more. The other way to go about this is through a simulator or an emulator. Simulators can be found all over the place on the internet. The emulator that I want to talk about for a moment is actually GNS3. GNS3 is actually found at gns3.net. Let me just write that up there, gns3.net. It was actually written by a guy named Jeremy. It's not me. I wish it were. Maybe that's why I'm interested in learning programming. It's actually a guy named Jeremy from France who created GNS3, which is an emulator for the Cisco iOS to actually boot the real deal iOS software on your computer. And it can emulate 1 or more routers that you have. Now, what I did when I created this series was I actually structured a lot of it around GNS3. Not because I don't have the equipment. I actually kept a lot of the equipment that I had from my CCIE studies years and years ago. Just piles and piles of equipment that I have sitting here. I could do it with the physical equipment, but my main goal is I want you to be able to do it too. I want you to be able to go through the labs that I've created and that I demo when I go through this entire series, so that you're able to experience it, that you're able to see the topologies that you set up, that you're able to try things that go outside of the box of what I do in here. I'm sure you're going to go through this and see something I do and go, well, I wonder what would happen if you shut down that interface, or what would happen if, if you have that thought, what would happen if? That's a sign that you need to get in there and try it yourself to see it. So what I did when I created the series is not only create the nuggets themselves, that I've done for many other CBT Nuggets series, but I've created labs. I've actually taken a lot of time to sit down and write labs with GNS3 topologies included that you're able to do. Now you can take those labs and use it on your own equipment. Feel free to. I encourage you to do so. But keep in mind that these labs were built with GNS3, where getting a router is as easy as dragging an icon onto a topology and poof, the router appears. It doesn't cost anything. So some of the topologies have a lot of routers, which may be difficult if you actually have the physical devices. Again, a few things to say about GNS3. 1, it is open source. The guy in France who's writing it is keeping it all open source with a lot of contributors. And anytime you throw something open source out there, it means if it crashes, well, sorry. Yeah, there's no one to call. It's free for anybody to use and anybody to contribute to. And I will say, in its current version that I'm using throughout this series, you may run into that. You may run into times where you just hit a bug and it explodes. And it can be frustrating at times. So that's why I created a couple nuggets following this where I explain some of the tests and trials that I've gone through when I've used GNS3 to hopefully ease that a little bit for you and keep you from getting frustrated with the product. Likewise, throughout this series, I've had the best of luck using a 2690X, a 9X, I think it's 2690 iOS image in GNS3. So that's what I've built all the topologies for. If you are using a different iOS image, feel free to do that. Likewise, GNS3, let me just say this, is a lab-only system. You are using this to study. It is not a production system. It does not even have packet forwarding capabilities that have any kind of supported speed whatsoever. However, it does work to work well in a lab environment where you don't need a ton of throughput and things like that. So all of that being said, let me now hit the last two bullets because it bleeds right in there. The only real way I think you're going to do well in this, well, I won't say do well, but thrive in this career in Cisco is to dig deeper and fall in love. People only love stuff that they really know. And I think I've grown in that knowledge as I've gone into this. When I first got into Cisco, I didn't like it. As a matter of fact, when I first got into Novell, I didn't like it. It was like, where's my GUI? Where's my next finish button that I'm used to with Windows NT? All of these different things. Anytime you get into something new, you just don't like it until you really know it. And that's what I'm talking about when I say dig deeper. If I'm going through and I'm explaining something, and you're like, well, I want more information about that. Go Google it. Go find it. The information technology highway has everything that you need. The more you master a topic, the more you'll like it, and naturally, the better you'll be at it. That's my little fall in love thing. And if you've gone through another series with me here, you know that I always say this: the only true way to master something is to really love it. And I think you get a feel from that just listening to me. You're like, that guy really likes what he does. I can tell. And I do. Anytime I get into this and I run into a problem, immediately I'm like, that's so lame. I wonder if that's a bug. I wonder, I kind of get that down and dreariness about me. I'm like, oh, how am I going to fix that? I don't know how it's going to, but once you get it, and you know this feeling, once you fix a problem that you've been trying to figure out for so long, and then you get it and you know why it works, and you're like, I got it. You're like, that was pretty cool. That's how you get masterful at any kind of technology, is you just do that again and again and again and again. It takes a lot of time, but by the time it's said and done, you're going to walk away with a collection of experiences where you're like, this is an amazing technology and here's why, and you can explain everything about it. So all that being said, that's how I would hope that you would get the most from this whole series. So I release you now into the CBT Nuggets Cisco Route series. I had a lot of fun making it. I hope that you enjoy it. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.